episode is brought to you by FlowFit. Your hormones should not be changing so dramatically that you could stab somebody one day and want to hug them the next, or leave you crying because your dog won't let you cuddle him. If on top of that you never know when your period is coming and you suspect you're overtraining and undereating, or that your body is stressed the fuck out, you're 1 in 10 and not the only one. And I've built a 6-week challenge that is not only customized to your body, but shows you how to eat, train, and think to match your cycle with specifically targeted nutrition plans and training programs and daily mindset practices that help you feel like yourself again in no more than an hour a day. And I educate you while you're already implementing and benefiting from all of those changes. Head to www.flowfit.live or book a 15-minute Zoom call with me through my link tree via my Instagram, and let's talk about if FlowFit is right for you. Let's start with the question from the community this week. What are your health non-negotiables? And this is from, I think it's Christel from Iceland, and I laugh because I hate pronouncing people's name incorrectly, but my little sister's name is Christelle. So yeah, I hope I pronounced that correctly. And so I really wanted to start this episode with a few personal stories that will make you laugh out loud. And I promise after I go on tangents with these stories, they have a purpose, so stick with me. Once upon a time, I wished to be on Big Brother. So I used to watch Big Brother as a teenager, and I used to think it was the coolest thing ever. But I'll never forget, I had this weird thought, and I sometimes I don't understand my brain, but I remember thinking to myself, I could never go on Big Brother because I rely daily on medication. And at the time, I would have been taking either minomycin, which is an antibiotic that doctors will normally put, I guess I was going to say girls, but it could be girls or boys or any gender, on like an antibiotic for your skin. So it's generally to try and help like improve skin. And I remember I was either on minomycin or Roaccutane, and let me just say, like, I have to do a separate episode on like just my past with like medication and how I see that it affected me now. I wish I didn't have such like short-term goals where I was like, I don't care about the long-term effects, because my gosh, it's like really ruined or had ruined my liver. And now I suffer with like my detoxification just is like sluggish and slow. But I remember thinking, like, I could never go on Big Brother because what if I ran out of medication, but then I was there for 3 months, and then what if they took everything off me? Because I remember there was this like time where they used to like take everything off you. So like they would take, you know, it was like silly things. I think on Love Island or something, I don't know, where this Taylor chick was off and they took her like digestive bitters, and like even little things like that, I was like, no, you can't take those things from me. So like I could never go on Big Brother. And just this weird random story has always stuck in my mind that I want to one day be well enough that all I need is my own body and my own knowledge to be able to navigate wherever I am and wherever I go. So I know that sounds like really like random and twisted. Like, why am I thinking of like, oh, I wish I could go on Big Brother? But it was more about like, I hope that one day, and I will strive to one day be so healthy and so kind of self-sufficient that I don't rely externally on anything else. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, I want to know my body now. Like these days, I want to know my body well enough to stay in flow no matter where I am or what I'm doing. Like, let's say, for example, you know, I go to a restaurant. I want to know exactly how to order the right meal for me so that it is in line with, say, my first half or my second half. And it's kind of funny because this same kind of principle now, and I literally just shared this in my YouTube vlog that I just put up. So go to Zibara and have a little lol and a giggle, but you'll also learn something new over there on my YouTube channel, which is also where this video will be. Hi. But it's funny because it's like this recurring theme that's happening in my life. And I sort of shared in that YouTube video that I'm so glad now that I'm at a place where I can go and try new things, and I don't have to have my really rigid, strict routine in order for me to stay healthy. Because when you're trying to get healthy, even if you think something like an elimination diet. They're so extreme, and sometimes they're very warranted, but sometimes they're so extreme that you're scared to do anything different because you're worried that it will make you take 3 steps back with your health. And so I have been there in ways. I never did like an elimination diet or anything. I never really needed to, but yeah, I definitely understand that mindset of how scary things can be sometimes. Even say, for example, you got, like I know a friend of mine got a parasite once, and then there was a period of time where she could only eat just a few foods, and there were only like 3 foods that she could eat that didn't set her off with her symptoms and give her really bad bloating and really bad pain. And so of course, she's gonna spend years and years after that being somewhat scared of introducing new foods. So it's kind of like that same concept of like, you know, you don't want to be too experimental because you're kind of scared of what will happen with your symptoms. And so, yeah, it was just like, I still just think how bizarre and how random that I had this like idea of Big Brother, but like it's actually become a pattern that's sort of reemerged through my life. And I just, you know, I want to strive for that body balance wherever I go. And so what I shared on my YouTube was, I was happy to go back to trying F45 here and there, and I got like a 2-week trial at an F45. Mind you, I don't know where I'm going to be, and that's why I only got a 2-week trial, because we're moving house a lot. So I'm going to share that little part of the story of my life at the moment a little bit later in this episode. So I was like, well, I know that I'm going to be in this area for about 2 to 3 weeks. So I'll do the trial at this particular F45. And so when I was able to go to F45, being a trainer myself, but also knowing my hormones and how to balance them and where I am at in my first half, or my second half in my cycle, and then also knowing how to like modify exercises to make sure that the hormones that I am producing are in line and kind of keep me in flow in my cycle. Like I don't work too hard or so hard that I burn myself out, and I still work hard enough that I'm able to, you know, like make sure that my body is working well and all the systems are working well, because obviously movement is very important for our health. So I shared that I was just so grateful to be in a position where I could do that. Like I could go to an F45 session and sign up for 2 weeks, but know my body well enough to know, is this right for me in this first half or this, you know, second half? I happen to be in the first half. And, you know, what kind of weights should I be doing? What kind of reps should I be doing? So for example, it happened to be a really great class. It was so in line and in sync with where I was in my cycle. It was a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays they do weights. And it just happened to be that I could lift really heavy, and it was just like perfect timing for my cycle. It was enough rest, and you know, I would just make sure that I got to like my sort of 8 to 10 rep range. If I was going to go over that, I just take a longer rest, because rest is also really important, like between sets. So it actually worked out really well. Now, the reason that I'm kind of bringing this up is that I know for a lot of women that when they come to say do something like FlowFit, they're worried that they're going to have to give up the things that they love. And one of those things I often find people being concerned about is coffee. You know, they're worried, oh, you know, I love my coffee, but I don't want to have to give up my coffee, and I heard it's bad for your adrenals, so what can I do? And I think where I come from in terms of like trying to help women just really, you know, just better themselves, but still enjoy like the things you want to enjoy. I think where I come from is, let's just choose that like one thing or two things that you love, that you don't want to have to let go of, and let's see how can we keep that in your life but still make those tweaks or those changes and make what you're doing work for you. For example, you don't have to give up coffee if you're doing FlowFit. You don't have to give up coffee if you're, you know, balancing your hormones. It doesn't have to be the only thing that you do. Now, it's important if you've got a stressed body that you're conscious of what you're doing to your adrenal glands, because they're the ones that release all your stress hormones. But it's the same principle with F45, like F45, CrossFit, you know, body fit. Gosh, there's so many different types of training that you could be doing, and even like yoga and Pilates, but like there are ways to tweak those things so that you're getting the most out of the memberships that you already have, with the resources that you already have and the things that you already love, but like tweaking them to make them match where you're at in your cycle. So I think that's kind of, you know, the sort of message that I wanted to send. And I just was so grateful to be in that position, because really a theme that's been going on for me in my life at the moment is like external attachment is something I'm trying to kind of rely less and less on. And this recurrent theme of my body is my home has really kind of caused me to try to let go of as many things that I possibly can. Like there are so many things, if you live in the city or the suburbs, like there's so many things that you have around you that you surround yourself with in your environment that you don't necessarily need. And I think maybe I'm just personally in a just shedding, phase of my life where I just want to just have like the basics, live kind of minimally, or I even like look at the amount of supplements that I have. There's probably like 50. And because I'm moving from house to house at the moment, doing house/pet sitting, which is like has its its hard times, but is all in all just like the funnest, best thing we could be doing right now. Even like looking at our supplements, it's like, okay, do we really need to be lugging like 50 supplements around every single time we move house? The answer is obviously no. So it's like, okay, well, let's get through our supplements, and then when we reorder, let's just be very conscious of what we have. And I think this whole like relying on things less and less, and having less things in my life, and just decluttering it on every aspect, every level of my life. It's like spring cleaning in every department of your life, and it's actually the best thing ever. And it's just making me realize how much we interpret and sort of give value to things, but things aren't the things that make us happy, which is just so ironic. It's like if you have your health, a person on their deathbed will say that's the one thing that that's the one thing that they would trade for anything else in their life, or someone who's sick would trade for anything else in their life. It's not all the things that you have in your life. It's really like if you have your health, and you have a clear mind, and you have, connections and love and, relationships with people that matter. And I think that that's what this kind of house sitting/pet sitting journey has really taught me. So let me just give you a little bit of a rundown, because you might not know what I'm talking about. So I think it was March, we discovered that the house that we were living in had a leak, and I started getting mold symptoms. Now I know when my body is experiencing mold symptoms, because I am like a human mold detector. Lucky me, so great for me. And I knew that I was getting mold symptoms. And for a few months before that, now obviously Sydney went through, we had La Nina, and so we had a lot of rain, and no one could have expected that rain. And I don't blame anyone for any like mold in this situation. Like I totally understand that there's a lot of people actually, and people who are probably, landlords and who have homes that have been riddled with mold, and it's absolutely shit. It sucks. There's no doubt about it. But from a health perspective, living in that home, I knew that I had to get out. And so I had suspected it was mold. And so when we got the testing done and it was confirmed, and I was like, well, I just don't see how mold in a wall is going to be remediated anytime soon. And so we had to make the decision to move out. And then once we did, we were kind of like, there was a rental crisis in Sydney. So we were like, well, we could pay a lot more than we normally would have for something that we want to stay in that's kind of similar to where we are now, or we could downsize and kind of just really sacrifice and pay an equal amount, or we could get creative. Now luckily we had a little halfway house, which was Gus's family member, who was so generously let us stay there for a month and kind of slowly get rid of our things. So what we did is we packed up everything in a taxi box that we wouldn't need. We literally moved to this house with I think 2 bed frames, 2 mattresses, and like 1 set of drawers for Billy, and that was it. So we sort of already started living out of suitcases. And then after that we thought, well, now what do we do? There's still a rental crisis in Sydney. And so what we actually decided to do was I came up with this bright idea of like, hey, why don't we house sit? And let's see if they've got animals, because Billy would love that. She is like an animal whisperer, I swear. And so we thought would be really fun. Like, why don't we just kind of go on what feels like a bit of an extended holiday? And the thing I love most about going on holidays and going on vacation is I actually love seeing how other people live. And so I thought, well, we kind of get a taste of that because we're able to see how other people live, what they're doing in their lives, like even stuff like how's their home set up, how do they live, how do they eat, how do they, you know, like what's their lifestyle like? And both Gus and I have this real fascination and intrigue with like people and how they live. And so it kind of worked out really well. Not to mention the amount of money we're saving on rent. So it's a pretty good setup, a pretty good deal. I won't bore you with the details, but if you are interested in it, then definitely reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll send you like the links and the websites, because I think it is such a fantastic idea. A lot of people at the moment are wanting to go away for like extended periods of time. So why not, you know, share with those people, you know, your accommodation and where you live. I mean, obviously you have to trust each other, get police checks and all that sort of stuff, and make sure that they're not going to steal all the things in your home. But there's also that aspect of, you know, a lot of people just want to make sure that their pets are looked after and that their pets don't have to go to kennels, and that someone will be able to enjoy the home that they have worked to build. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And actually I've made such lovely friends. Like the people whose homes we've lived in have just been so amazing. Like it's funny because it's like you wouldn't think that that's how it would work out, but it's been unreal. And because of that, I thought, you know, I think it would be so interesting if people knew what were my non-negotiables. So what was I bringing with me from house to house with all of my belongings, or big belongings anyway, in a taxi box? What was I actually bringing with me from house to house? And so I thought this would be really interesting. And so I'm going to run through a few things that for me are like, I cannot go without this, because there's things that like I can go without. For example, I was just looking at my nails. Like I can go without getting my nails done. I can go without, you know, getting massages. I can go without getting my hair done and all that sort of stuff. Go without, you know, if I went to a place and I sort of didn't know the area, which by the way, we're just staying in the same area that we've been living in for years anyway, which is fun because then, you know, we still have our same friends. It's not like it's so different that it's, you know, we're learning everything new and all these new places, and we kind of, you know, so we still have like the newness, but we still have the certainty and the routine kind of still there. So it all works together. So here are some things that I definitely bring with me that I cannot live without. So first of all, I bring my supplements. So obviously I was talking, I have a lot, we're decluttering, but supplements is one. Collagen powder. So as a supplement, I like to use like a collagen protein powder. And for me, that's like really important, because not only is it important for my skin and skin health, but it's so important for my gut. And I know if it's showing up on my skin that it's helping my gut on the inside. And so that's what I love so much about it. I bring my pots and pans. So I have green pan pots and pans. And the only reason I do that is because when you go into someone else's kitchen, they may or may not have like the same pans, pots, whatever that you want to use. And because you know I'm low tox, the green pans are all low tox. And so I know that they're not going to like shed little bits of Teflon on their non-stick pans and then, you know, poison me basically with their toxins while I'm cooking, because you know that it's so important for me with hormonal health to make sure that I'm living as low tox as possible. Talking about toxins in the air, and especially potentially if there is mold in the house, which one of them there was, and you know, again, it's one of those unavoidable situations, but it is still important to do that, or to be mindful of it anyway. I bring an air purifier, and it's a small one, and it's actually one I used to have in the other studio as well, but I like to bring it around with me just in case that the room that we're in, at the very least the room that we're sleeping in, its air is clear. I also now, like this is like a new addition to my non-negotiables, my little health kit for my extended holidays, is a home enema kit. I suddenly have just absolutely loved like focusing a lot on my liver detoxification. Obviously it's been really important because of the mold experience that I've had, and so the liver is really the organ that gets the most burdened with that. So I like that it's portable and it's small. I have a Happy Bum Co enema kit, and I really love their beginner bundles. So I've been talking a lot about it, and they gifted it to me, but yeah, I can't speak highly of it enough. I just think it's so great, and they make it so easy. I don't even know how to like brew coffee, and I'm able to do a coffee enema, and I've really started to notice the difference. And especially because I was considering, or we were considering potentially living in Bali for a little bit. And I thought if we were going to live in Bali for a little bit, we are going to need to make sure that if we ever get Bali belly, that we can like recover from it somehow. And so that was just kind of like my line of thinking. But I do like that I'm able to go around and have like this like portable kit. My non-toxic skincare and body care. At the moment, I'm using Synergy Skin. I love Synergy Skin. Body care, it just ranges. As long as it doesn't have phenoxyethanol in it or phenoxyethanol in it, which is I think how you pronounce it. I just know that one ingredient, it just does not like my skin, and it just is a little bit toxic for me. My non-toxic like hand wash, dishwashing supplies, and washing supplies. And so interestingly, the washing supplies that I usually use like an Eco Store washing powder, and then for my softener I use vinegar and eucalyptus oils. Actually so cheap, such a good way to do it, and it's absolutely low tox, so I love that. Of course, a full set of my teas, D's teas. I love that I've got the detox in the morning, the dessert in the afternoon, and the de-stress at night, just so that again, if I'm kind of like, if things are changing and things are different, I can still regulate my nervous system. I can still manage my cravings, especially because sometimes you go without food because you're like moving into a house and then got to eat up the food from the other house, and then you might like rock up and there's nothing in the fridge, which of course, like I'm not saying there has to be something in the fridge, but you know what I mean. So you might like go without food. It takes you a little bit of a while to stock up the fridge and the pantry and all that sort of stuff. So I definitely think that's important. And then of course, every morning I always have my detox tea no matter where I am. Now, speaking of that, I also, to put the water in for that tea, I also bring my Brita filter with me everywhere. Now, Brita is not the highest quality filter that you can possibly get, but in terms of like portability, it's so great because it's just a tiny little jug. Like I don't have a massive car, so I want to be able to pack everything into 1 or 2 cars, like car loads, so that I'm able to move around pretty freely. And then I also bring things like my Luxie cups. Like I drink water out of my Luxie cup, which is like a glass and silicone reusable cup. I love Luxie. I've been using their cups for forever. Billy loves them. Every single morning she asks me, Mum, can I have a hot chocolate in my Luxie cup? And I just bring them because let's say, for example, there's just like a whole bunch of young kids in the house, like the people who are on holiday have a whole bunch of young kids. They might have just only plastic. And so I would rather make sure that if I'm having a hot drink that I'm, again, not getting microplastics in my food. So again, that's an important thing for me. So that's what I'm pretty much bringing around with me to keep me healthy. I'm sure there's other things like that I will think of as soon as I finish recording, but that's just an idea of like what I'm bringing with me to kind of continue to stay healthy. Like obviously every time I move into a new place, I stock the fridge and the pantry with healthy food, and generally they'll clean out a pantry for you, like 1 or 2 shelves or something like that, so you can just keep all your stuff in there. And that's really how I'm keeping myself healthy. Obviously I eat, train and think no matter where I go or what I'm doing, and I always have FlowFit via the app. So if I want a recipe, I just go to the nutrition plans in there. If I want a home workout because there's nowhere around that I can go or sign up to for a short amount of time, or it's too expensive and I don't want to, then I've always got the home workouts on my FlowFit app as well. And so I always also do my daily practices, my 3 daily practices, and it's easy because it's like you can do that from anywhere. And honestly, that is why I love FlowFit so much. I know it's my own program, but that's why I love it so much, is because you can do it from anywhere. You could do it from anywhere, so much so you could go on Big Brother. Like, come on. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I think if you know anybody who either wants to house sit or does house sit or pet sit, or is going on any kind of extended holidays, maybe they're moving interstate or abroad, and maybe it's an extended period but still temporary, there might be a list of things here that I use to keep myself healthy that they might be able to use too. So please share this episode with a friend, and I will see you next week on What a Mouthful.